of Islam and the Quran. It's becoming very still. Okay, my dear friends, if you open your eyes and we can start talking about different aspects. The first question I think to be answered, somebody had asked in the last class, can I say a few words about Sufism? What is Sufism? So to answer that, I have to first go back and talk about the two main denominations in Islam. If you remember, Sunni and Shia. 85% of the Islamic world is Sunni, S-U-N-N-I, that's a denomination. And then there is the Shia, 15%. 85% Sunni, 15% Shia. So for example, some of the Shia countries, majority Shia countries, Iran is a majority Shia country. Iraq is majority Shia. Bahrain, majority Shia. But again, to know that as in all traditions, this bifurcation is based on something which is not that critical, but it has led to some large consequences. So what caused this denomination to occur? When Prophet Muhammad died in 632 CE, after birth of Christ, the question arose, who would succeed him, not as a prophet, as a community leader. And one group said it should be by democratic consensus. Other group said that's absolutely right, except that we had a prophet in our midst, should be by blood lineage. The ones who said should be by blood lineage, meaning the family of the Prophet Muhammad, they were called Shia. Those who said by consensus, Sunni. Today, it doesn't matter because the community of Muslims all over the world is huge, and there are close to 60 majority Muslim countries. But it mattered in that time, and just that decision of who should become community leader caused this division, which magnified over time. Okay, so now, who are the Sufis? The biggest misconception is that Sufism is also a denomination like Sunni or Shia. But Sufism is not a denomination. Sufism is a heartfelt aspiration to live the spirit of the tradition. Could be Sunni or Shia, or actually could be of any religion. They say it has grown into that, evolved into that thinking, can be of any religion, but some people don't agree with that. They say you have to be a Muslim. Other Sufis say, no, you can be of any religion as long as you espouse certain universal values. So we can talk more about that later, but so Sufis could be Sunni, could be Shia, and actually could be of any other religion. They're very wary of institutions. That is why they talk about this joke, which I mention all the time, about the fact that God comes down and reveals certain basic truths to some people, but then the devil comes along and says, let me organize that for you. And that becomes religion. It's a joke, but the Sufis take it very seriously. Or the poetry of Hafiz, who says, you know, the institution of religion is like a large lumbering ship. But thank God there are lifeboats on the ship. And what are the lifeboats? Hafiz says, lifeboats are the sayings, the wisdom, the words of the sages, of the saints. They are the lifeboats. And then Hafiz ends the poetry by saying, every sane, every S-A-N-E, every sane person I know has jumped overboard. So Sufis have existed and continue to do so since the beginning. It is said that Prophet Muhammad was also a Sufi. And how do we determine that? One of the companions, and the Prophet Muhammad had a few companions, once told someone that, you know, when Prophet Muhammad preaches, he says one thing to the general public, but to us, he says some things which, if I told you what they were, you would cut my throat. It is so, could be so blasphemous. That's the esoteric knowledge. There is knowledge of the tongue, there is knowledge of the heart. Another quick insight, Sufis love to focus on service. You know, the metaphor is that Muslims all over the world, they bow and prostrate in the direction of the Kaaba. That's the symbolic house of God. It's a house built many, many centuries ago. And the Muslims say rebuilt by Abraham and Ishmael. And it's draped in black. And all the Muslims, when they pray, they go like this and they bow and prostrate. They point in the direction of the Kaaba, symbolic house of God, in the Grand Mosque in Mecca. So the Sufis say, have you not noticed that Muslims all over the world, they bow in the direction of the Kaaba and they bow and prostrate? But what happens if you take the Kaaba away? You find they're all bowing and prostrating to the other. Meaning, true prayer consists of bowing and prostrating, being of service to the other. Another point about Sufis is they're very flexible, and they're heavily criticized for being overly flexible. And from which comes this wonderful insight, which I love, which I repeat everywhere. Blessed are the flexible, for they will never be bent out of shape. Blessed are the flexible, for they will never be bent out of shape. Maybe another quick insight. Many of the Sufi masters throughout the centuries have been musicians. Wonderful musicians. There's something about music which is very, very spiritual. Okay, lastly, just one quick story. Maybe one more point before that. Every great Sufi master has a particular special talent. A great musician, they can heal through their music. They can change the mood of a place where there is conflict. They will come and do some vibrational song, and that will change the mood of the entire community. My paternal grandfather, he had this gift of sometimes praying from the heart for rain to fall in drought areas. Sometimes nothing happened, but sometimes torrential rains would fall through prayers. Some Sufi masters, just through a glance, through their eyes, by looking at you, can heal you, open something up in you. In fact, I remember this one person, his name is Bob. Well, it's a very common name, as you know, from Olympia. And he used to visit our interfaith community sanctuary and come and always talk to me. This was many years ago. And he just would say, Jamal, I like you because you're a good-natured person. You're good-natured. And then he used to follow me everywhere, to any event. Although he lived in Olympia, I said, Bob, you must meet a real Sufi. It so happened that this wonderful Sufi master, and that's a long story, from nowhere, from Senegal, Sheikh J, a true Sufi master. I don't know how it happened. He came to visit our sanctuary because he said he had the vibrational feeling. This is a He called it a church. This is a Sufi church that can be a model for the world, where we embrace all traditions. And he would visit quite often, all the way from Senegal, and he was a real Sufi master. Once he came for an international conference in Bellevue, and Bob was there among the audience, among hundreds of people, and Bob said that suddenly the eyes of this great master fell on the eyes of Bob, and he was changed forever. His whole life, he said, was transformed just by that glance of that Sufi master on his eyes. And then Sheikh J went up to him and said, "You saw me looking at you." He said, "Yes, yes." And then he invited Bob to his hotel room and showed him some techniques and told him, "We shall meet very soon in a very special journey." And Bob said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You'll find out. We shall meet very soon." Well, Bob, who used to come here, visit me very often, suddenly stopped coming. I said, "Where's Bob?" I made some inquiries, found out that he had died unexpectedly in Olympia. And then a few weeks later, we got this tragic news that Sheikh J died, that Sheikh, he also passed away suddenly in an accident. So some of us say that was what he meant. They'll meet in that special. It is a very remarkable encounter, meeting Bob and meeting this Sufi master, both of whom are gone. They are in the invisible realms. So for now, just I want you to become very still and ask yourself, who have been the teachers in my life? Authentic teachers in my life. Doesn't have to be a great sage, can be a little child, an ordinary person, but taught you something that resonated, went deep, splashed in your heart. Think about it. For just half a minute more. Teachers in my life. Okay, my friends. So for me, I just have to tell you, for me, it has been my parents primarily who have been the greatest teachers in my life. And for you, you have to decide who have been your greatest teachers. Okay, just let go of that. So the second point I want to mention, something we have talked about again and again and again, so I won't dwell on it. Sufis will say that life really begins when you become a seeker. When you begin to ask deeper questions. When you move from a knowledge of the tongue to a knowledge of the heart. Who am I? Why am I here? What's going on? Who is God? What is this talk about God? Deeper questions. We know all these questions exist, but not a knowledge of the tongue, a knowledge of the heart. And for a Sufi, they will look at this verse in the Quran where the verse says that before God sent humanity to planet Earth, down to Earth, it's a lower plane, God gathered all of the unborn humanity. And if you remember, God said, the Arabic word is, Alastu bi rabbikum, Alastu bi rabbikum. Am I not your Lord, your sustainer? Am I not your sustainer? And apparently we got so excited, unborn humanity got so excited, and we said, yes, 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 we testify to it. And then God sent all of us to earth. And within us was that longing to honor and hear and respect those words when Spirit said, am I not your sustainer? Within each one of us, there is a longing to one more time to connect, to hear, to bond with that vibration of the glow of presence, which said, am I not your sustainer? Which is why the other revelation the Sufis really meditate on is where God sent the revelation to Prophet Muhammad, where God says, I was a secret treasure and I longed to be known. And so I created you and the worlds, visible and invisible. So there's a longing within us which we're not aware of. But the longing can come out when you feel you have everything in life. You have money, you have good relationships, good circumstances, wonderful children, wonderful job. But then there still exists a dissatisfaction within. What is this dissatisfaction? What is this unease? What is this thirst I cannot explain? What is it about? Like those words of Rabia we have repeated again and again. There is a disease in my breast no doctor can cure. There is a disease in my breast no doctor can cure. Only union with that friend can cure it. Take it a step further. We don't ask these deeper questions. We don't get in touch with that longing because we have not yet become a seeker. And as Rumi said, there are two veils. By now, I hope you know it by heart, the veils of health and wealth. My health is good, my parents' health is good, my loved ones, or I have wealth, not just money, but also security, emotional security. But once that veil breaks, deeper question. Why me? What's going on? Death of my parents will happen. Unexpected circumstances will happen in my life. Then deeper questions. But the most important question is, I need help from a source greater than human personality, larger than a human institution. I need help. I surrender. It can be something very simple. One of the two most singular acts I have seen of surrender, of becoming a seeker, was this person who was an alcoholic came to me for treatment. I want to overcome my alcoholism, my addiction to alcohol. And one day he came and said, I am healed, I'm cured. I just want to be a better human being. I want to be a good father. I want to know more about God. I want to be a model of a human being. I said, what happened? He said, well, I have this beautiful little angelic daughter, very small, who I love, and she loves me. And I always hold her in my arms, even when I'm drunk. In fact, especially when I'm drunk. And one day he glimpsed the daughter making a face because, he smelled so bad of alcohol. He reeked of alcohol. In the same moment, instantly, she changed her expression because she loved the father so much and smiled at him, but with some pain. And immediately he realized something struck him. He said, my daughter's, the expression I saw on my daughter's face for a split second, that expression I saw on my daughter's face, and he was crying as he was telling me that, it pierced my heart. And I decided in that instant, I'm going to give up alcohol. And I had no trouble giving up alcohol. I decided in that instant to become a really good human being. I want to become the model of a good human being, of a really wonderful father to this sweet, angelic, innocent child. He became a seeker, and I need help. I need help not just from you, Jamal. I need help from something higher than human personality. I need help from, call it spirit, call it God, call it what you will. In your life, and we've done this many times, this exercise, on the timeline of your life, what made you become a seeker? You could have been watching a sunset. It could be a whole series of events. It could be a singular event. What was it? Just spend just a couple of minutes on that. So we won't spend too much time on this. You have done this a number of times before, but the verse in the Quran that really summarizes this becoming a seeker is, you reach a point on the timeline of your life where you burst out, say, my prayers, my sacrifices, my living, my dying, are all for you, my sustainer. My prayers, my acts of worship, my sacrifices, my living, my dying are all for you. So just be with that. And I've got some quotations here from the Quran that Sufis look at. So I don't want to get the words wrong, so I wrote it down. This one, which I remember when I was a child, I was given this particular verse to focus on when my parents felt that I was coming into that stage of becoming a seeker, of being willing to surrender. And what am I surrendering? Surrendering my ego in exchange for divinity. I'm beginning the lifelong process of the divine exchange. Surrendering my ego so I can bring essence into my life, spirit into my life. Well, here are the two verses, one from the Quran, one from Rumi, which I remember very well from my teachers, about understanding the meaning of surrender, which is about, what are you surrendering? You're surrendering your attachment to your ego. I repeat, because I've been told this maybe a few hundred times, surrendering, Jamal, your attachment to your ego so you can bring divinity into your life. Call it whatever you will, justice, truth, compassion, divine qualities into your life. So here's one verse I remember. That which is from the presence of God is better than any bargain or passing delight. For God is the best of providers. That which is from the presence of God is better than any bargain or passing delight. For God is the best of providers. Just be with that. It might seem obvious, but is it a knowledge of the tongue that you are rooting it on, basing it on, or knowledge of the heart? So for me, my parents chose this verse from the Quran, which is little, from Rumi. Where will you find a customer like God? Where will you find a customer like God? If you remember the verse from Rumi, maybe Amber knows it, Kerry. Where will you find a customer like God who pays in gold? Who, Jamal, accepts your counterfeit coins and buys your dirty, shabby bag of goods, and in return gives a spiritual spring so delicious that even sugar is jealous of its sweetness. See, I know it by heart because it resonated. This is, of course, a more modern translation from the one I had been given earlier. Jamal, where will you find a customer like God who pays in gold, who accepts your counterfeit coins, who buys your dirty, shabby bag of goods, and in return gives a spiritual spring so delicious that even sugar is jealous of its sweetness? Okay, let me give you some more verses. I've got it right here that I remember. If one desires the rewards of this world, let him remember that with God are the rewards of both this world and the life to come. If one desires the rewards of this world, let him remember, let her remember that with God, with spirit, with mystery, are the rewards of both this world and the life to come. Jamal, if spirit is with you, no one can overcome you. But if spirit forsakes you, Jamal, no one can help you. If God is with you, if spirit is with you, no one can overcome you, Jamal. But if the great mystery forsakes you, no one can help you. Just be with it for a few seconds. I remember this next verse was given to me, and I was asked to make a prayer, a lifelong prayer out of it. Whoever submits his or her whole life to God, whoever submits his or her entire life to God and is a doer of good, has indeed grasped the most trusty handhold, has indeed grasped the most trusty handhold, for with spirit rests the final outcome of all endeavors. I remember this one very clearly. Whoever submits his or her entire self to spirit and is a doer of righteous deeds, a doer of good, has indeed grasped the most trusty handhold. For with God rests the final outcome of all endeavors. And I was asked, make a prayer out of this that you can repeat to yourself again and again. So I remember this prayer many decades ago. I wrote, may I feel the grasp of your hand in my hand. May I feel the grasp of your hand in my hand at all times, and especially in times of failures and afflictions. May I feel the grasp of your hand in my hand at all times, and especially in times of difficulties, failures, afflictions. So for me, that's become like a prayer. Can I, because I like to feel, I'm a feeling person. Can I feel the grasp of your hand in my hand at all times, but especially in times of failure and affliction? And then this verse from Rumi, I remember, Jamal, the ocean takes care of every wave till it reaches the shore. Jamal, the ocean takes care of every single wave till it reaches the shore. You are given, Jamal, more help than you'll ever know. You are given more help, Jamal, than you'll ever know. Just be with that for a few moments. And now I also remember being given lots of poems, but I like particularly poems by Hafiz as interpreted by David Ladinsky. Many Muslims don't like that, but I love it very much, his rendition of Hafiz poetry. He says, Jamal, Hafiz says, let's keep all spiritual talk simple today. Let's keep all spiritual talk simple today. God is trying to sell you something. God is trying, Jamal, to sell you something. But you refuse to buy. And this refusal to buy is your suffering. Your fantastic haggling. Your manic screaming over the price. Jamal, let's keep all spiritual talk simple today. God is trying to sell you something. But Jamal, you refuse to buy. This refusal to buy is your suffering, your fantastic haggling, your manic screaming over the price. Just be with that for a few moments. Or the other one by Hafiz, I remember. Jamal, life is like a sublime chess game. Life is like a sublime chess game. And God has just made such a fantastic move that the sage, the evolved person, the saint, is tripping over with joy and saying, oh God, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender. But you, Jamal, you think you have 100 more moves to make. Jamal, life is like a sublime chess game. And God has made just such a fantastic move that the saint is tripping over with joy and saying, oh God, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender. But you, Jamal, you think you have 100 more moves to make. So now, something I was told early in my teaching this divine exchange, what does this divine exchange mean to you? Exchanging the ego for divine attributes. And I was given 2 more verses, I remember, to meditate on for a lifetime. Say, Jamal, and this is from the Quran, what has seduced you away from your most generous instructor? Say, Jamal, what has seduced you away from your most generous instructor? Say, what has seduced you away from your most generous instructor? And the other one I remember, Jamal, sell not your bond with God for so paltry a price. Do not sell your bond with God for so paltry a price. And Rumi adds, for being so precious in God's eyes. You are so precious. Rumi says, Jamal, you are more precious than heaven and earth. Sell yourself for not so little a price, being so precious in God's eyes. You know, so this boils down to that one question we always ask, and that one of the greatest insights in Sufism. Jamal, whose ever approval you seek, you become their prisoner. You've heard this 100 times. Whose ever approval you seek, you become their prisoner. Think about it. And so the other sentence, if you remember, I hope you know it by heart too. Therefore, Jamal, this is the answer to that question, to life. Choose your jailers with care and deliberation. Choose your jailers with care and deliberation. Whosever approval you seek, you become their prisoner. Think about it. Take it to heart. It's not a question of good or bad. It's a law of the created world. Whosever approval you seek, you become their prisoner. Therefore, Jamal, choose your jailers with care and deliberation. Ask yourself, in my life, and we've done this before, whose approval am I seeking right now in my life? I am the prisoner. It's okay. But understand it, know it, become aware of it. Whose approval am I seeking? And make a decision. I'm going to choose my jailers with care and deliberation. It might require a shift. Very quickly, one last Quranic verse. God has not put in the human being 2 hearts, but 1. God has not put in the human body 2 hearts. God has placed only 1 heart in the human body. And the story that I was given that goes with it, with this verse I just quoted, God has not put in the human body 2 hearts. God has only put 1 heart, is a story you have heard many times. A lover looking for his or her beloved, looking for his beloved, searches the world, finally finds a dwelling place of the beloved, knocks on the door, and the beloved says, who is it? Who is it? And the lover replies, it is I, it is I. And the beloved says, go away, there's no place for you. There's no place for you here. And the lover is so confused, so beloved, and goes the world over, getting experiences, learning from mistakes, meeting people, learning, and finally gets it. Comes back after much learning, knocks again on the beloved's door. Beloved says, "Who is it?" And the lover says, "It is you, it is you, it is you." Door flings open, "Come on in, there's space for both of us." Rumi says, if you understand this story, you understand the meaning of surrender. Okay, the question for you now is, think about it. What do you understand by divine exchange? How does it manifest in your life? And very quickly, before you think about it, write about it, I wanted to mention the story of Gandhi, who was in his early life a total failure. He was filled with shame, humiliation, very low self-esteem. He thought that his entire life was meaningless, till he came across this one verse in the Bhagavad Gita, which said, "Truth is God. Truth is God." And that changed his entire life. He became truthful in his words, in his deeds, at all costs, and he became who has become today. By that one verse, truth is God. What do you understand by divine exchange? How does it manifest in your life? Spend a couple of minutes thinking and writing about it. Okay, my dear friends, before we take a break, there's one more aspect I just wanted to quickly mention and ask you to just ponder on that. The Sufis say the word surrender has a sub meaning also, a surrender number 2, you might say. This is when you seek a specific outcome. You want this particular job. You want this particular relationship. You do your best. You put in all your effort. It's very subjective. At a certain point, you decide when to let go of that effort and let God. You know that very well, of letting go and letting God. When our ego and our conscious effort lets go and yields to a power not its own, greater than the ego. At which point do you let go for a certain outcome you want? You give it your best. Whether it's a job or a relationship or a certain plan you have. And that point is very critical, when our ego and our conscious effort lets go and yields to a greater power. It's an art. It's a life learning of letting go and allowing the boat to be taken over by the tide. So question now, very quick question for you is, when have you let go of outcomes and trusted in that greater power during difficult decisions and circumstances in your life? When did you let go of the outcome after giving it your best and trusting in that higher power during difficult decisions and circumstances in your life? When did you surrender in that sense? Okay, my dear friends, if you look at the chat box, Sally Jo has put in a number of questions for you to ponder on. You can choose any one of them or two of them.